Hello, I'm Greg. Welcome to my channel, Midnight Oil Software, and another video in my series on music and sound effects in Unity. In this video, we're going to be talking about addressables and cloud content delivery. Instead of bundling our audio assets as part of the game build, we're going to be hosting them up on Unity's cloud content delivery service, and our game is going to download them asynchronously in the background. And there's three main benefits that come to mind when I think of this approach. The first is our build size is going to be smaller. Since we're not including these audio assets as part of our build size will be smaller, and this will make downloading and installing the game faster. This is especially important on mobile devices. The second benefit is that because our build size is smaller and we're not including all of these audio assets, our load time will be faster. And if you've ever developed a game for a console like the PlayStation or the Xbox, you know that they will reject your game if it doesn't load up right away. So this is an optimization technique that can make loading your game to the initial scene much faster since it's loading those audio assets asynchronously in the background. And the third benefit that I actually think gives you the most value is the ability to dynamically change your content without making a whole new build of your game. So you can add or remove or swap out assets on Content Cloud Delivery without having to do a whole new build of your game, without making your players having to download a new version. It would just automatically grab the new assets from Cloud Content Delivery. So, if this is something that interests you, then grab your favorite beverage, pull up a chair, and follow along as I teach you how to use addressables and Cloud Content Delivery in Unity. Okay, so I want to do a quick recap of what we've got in our project here. So if you recall, I've got a music manager and it's got a couple of scriptable object serialized fields for music clip groups. There's a combat one and there is a peaceful one. And so if you look at the peaceful one, you'll see that there is a series of audio clips for peaceful music, and then the same thing for combat. There are a bunch of combat music clips. And if I was to start to play the game, I would randomly choose one of those peaceful music clips and play it. And then if I was to go move within attack range of an enemy, it would transition to one of the combat music clips. And it would also play sound effects for different types of footsteps, depending on what type of terrain I'm walking on. I've got a bunch of different music clips for those, and I have a sound effects manager that handles all of that. Now, one thing I wanted to show you is that if I was to go into my console and open up the editor log and let Unity open that up, a notepad. Now, if I hit Control F to search for a report, okay, I don't know what's up with that. It should have found the build report. All right. All right, so if we look at this build report here, I want you to look here under sounds. There's 79 megabytes worth of sound files being included in this build. Now, that's not a lot. Depending on your game, this could be much higher, especially depending on the quality and the size of your sound files. But I just want you to pay attention to this number because after we switch to using addressables and cloud content delivery, you're going to see that number drop to basically nothing. So let me show you how we would add addressables to this project. So the first thing we need to do to be able to add addressables to our game is we need to import the package for addressables. So if we open up our package manager and we want to make sure we have the Unity registry selected. Now you can either just scroll down and find addressables, or you could have searched for addressables up here, and I'm just going to click install. Okay, so it's done installing, and so now we can begin adding addressables to our game. The next thing we want to do is we want to make sure that our game is connected on the Unity services. So under the Services tab, we want to come over here and select an organization. So you should already have an organization with Unity. If you don't have one, you're going to have to go to your Unity dashboard and set one up. So I'm going to select Greg Bradburn. And we're going to create a project ID for this project. All right, so I don't know why it does this sometimes. Okay, and so you can see that I'm using my organization here, and it created a Unity project ID, and we just want to select whether or not this is going to be targeted to children under age 13. I'm going to say no, and I'm going to click Save. All right, and now that we've done that, we can go over here to Windows, Asset Management, Addressables, Groups. Okay, and we're going to create some addressables settings. All right, and it's going to create a default profile for us. And there's a default group already, but we're going to want to create a new group. So I'm going to drop this down here and create a new blank group. And I'm going to call this Music Assets. All right. Now, when we go into our different music files and so forth, we can actually add them to a group, and we're going to tag them as well, because under our music assets, we're going to have combat music and peaceful music, and then you may have more different types of music. But under my project, I'm going to go down here onto music and combat, and I'm going to select all of these. And if you look, now that we've installed our Addressables package, you can see we've got this little checkbox up here called Addressables. So if we click that, these now become addressables, and then we can add them to the Music Assets group. And there you go. The other thing that we could do is we could tag them, but if we go and drop this down, you can see that they're all under that Music Assets group. And then under here, under labels, we're going to go to Manage Labels. We're going to create a new one, and we're going to call this Combat. All right, and while we're here, let's go ahead and create one called Peaceful. All right, and go ahead and close that. We're going to select all of these, and in this drop down, I'm going to pick Combat. All right, and so they're all now combat music under Music Assets. Let's do the same thing for our peaceful music. We'll pick all of these. We will make them addressable. We will add them to the Music Assets group. We will select all of them. Oops, I want to click them here. Select all of them, select the drop down, and say peaceful. And so now all of our music assets are part of an addressable group called Music Assets, and they are labeled or tagged depending on whether they're combat or peaceful. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close that. I'm going to save my project. Okay, another thing we want to do is we want to go and address some of our settings. So if we bring down our menu here for Asset Manager Addressables and go to Settings, we're going to want to set this to Build Remote Catalog. Okay, and what we're going to have to do though is we're going to have to configure our profile for our remote deployment. And on our Unity dashboard, we're going to create an environment, a bucket, and a badge. By default, we'll have a latest badge, and your environment could be, for example, development. Say you want to initially deploy these asset groups up to a development environment so you can test it. Maybe then have a staging environment that you could promote it to so that your QA team, if you have one, can test it. And then ultimately, you're probably going to want to have your production environment where you can actually promote it for when it's ready to go out to all your real users. But for initially, we're just going to start with this button here set to Build Remote Catalog. And then let's go look at our profile. So again, under Windows, Asset Management, Addressables, let's go to Profiles. And I'm just going to dock this guy here over next to my Animator tab so we can always get to it. Right now, you see that for Remote, it says Editor Hosted. And we're going to want to change that to Cloud Content Delivery. And this is going to make us want to install the Cloud Content Delivery Management SDK package. So let's go ahead and do that. And I will click yes. All right, so there we go. We can change this now to Cloud Content Delivery. And we're going to have to specify our environment, bucket, and badge. So I'm going to create a new environment. And this is going to take us to our Cloud Content Delivery dashboard. And I need to sign in. And of course, this all assumes that you already have a Unity account. I assume if you're using the Unity editor, you have an account. And you can see it's taken us to our project that we created from within the Unity editor. And by default, we have a production environment. But I want to go ahead and create a new environment. So I'm going to say add environment. And I'm going to call this one development. All right. Create. And then I'm going to select development. And you can see down here, we got a bunch of things in our little side menu here. Go here, pick development down here, and we can create a new bucket. So just to show you how I got there, I clicked Cloud Content Delivery here, and then from here, I picked our environment, which is development, and now we're going to create a new bucket, and I'm just going to call this testing. Obviously, you would probably want to have a little more meaningful name, but I just want to show you how this works. I'm just going to call this test bucket for music and sound effects. All right. And this is going to be a regular bucket, and it's not going to be private. All right. So it's in our development environment. It's not private, and it's not set to promotion only. So I will say create. And if we wanted to, I could create another one, and I could make it so that it's promotion only. So when I actually go into our production environment here, I can create a new bucket here and call it testing. And I will once again say test bucket for music and sound effects. But this one I'm going to make promotion only. Right? So the way this will work is we will publish our sound effects groups and our music groups up to the testing bucket and our development environment. And then once we have assets in there, we can then promote them to the production environment. So I'm going to go back into the Unity editor, and I have encountered problems if I just try to proceed from this point. So what I am going to do is I'm going to exit Unity and I'm going to reload it just because I have occasionally run into issues when I actually try and build to the Cloud Content Delivery. And by the way, I want to just show you under Asset Management, if we go into our groups, I'm going to drag this guy up here next to our profile so we can just always get to these whenever we want. If I pick my music assets, you see there is a build to CCD here, and I can use our default build script that Unity gives us. And it will build all of these assets, and it will publish them out to Cloud Content Delivery. But sometimes I run into issues if I don't first save my project and exit Unity and then reload it. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, so I have rebooted Unity, and we're going to look at our groups here. And what we want to do now is we want to go to our profile, and we want to set this to Cloud Content Delivery, and we're going to specify the environment. So I'm going to hit refresh here, and I'm going to select development, and then I'm going to select our testing bucket, and by default, we get a latest badge. All right, so now whenever I want to push new stuff out to Cloud Content Delivery, our game will always pull whatever is in the latest badge. All right, so I'm going to save my project here. And I'm going to go back to our Addressables group, select our music assets, and I'm going to say build to CCD and say default build script. All right, and it's telling me that there's going to be a new Addressables build report that we can check after our content build. And this requires that we turn on this setting here under Edit Preferences Addressables, and it will turn it on for us if we click yes. All right, so we had an issue here. If I go to my console, all right, so it did not build our addressables content state.bin file. And so there was nothing for it to push. So let me go look again at our settings. Okay, this is set here. We're using the default profile. Build remote catalog is set to true. This is set to remote. Okay, we go back over here and look at our addressables group and select this. So we can look at it in the inspector. We need to add a schema. And under our schema, we want to select remote. So it gets all of that. We want it to include and build. All right, so I think all that looks good. Let me do another save project, and let's try again to build the CCD. And this is the build report that it created. And you can see it built a remote catalog. And you can see all the different information about that build here. The number of bundles, there's only one. The number of assets, there's 15 total. There's like, I think 8 combat and 7 peaceful music files, or vice versa. I don't remember which. And all of those are addressables. So let's just finish. It finished all of its post-build stuff there. And so now if we were to go over to our Unity dashboard, and let's just refresh here. All right. So you can see that in our testing bucket for this project, there are these music assets that were added. And there's our addressables content state bin and the catalog. And so all of that is now live on Content Cloud Delivery. And as long as we were to configure our application to pull from that, then we would actually grab those assets from Content Cloud Delivery. Now, there's a couple things we need to do to make that work. For one thing, here we have this play mode script. We need to tell it to use the existing build, because otherwise it's just going to use our local asset database, which has already got all the assets cached. If we really want to test this correctly, we need to set that to use existing build. I'm going to go and save those projects. And the next thing we're going to have to do is, right now our code is still, it's using the prefabs that I've dragged in, not really prefabs, but it's using the audio clips from the scriptable objects that I've added to our music manager. So we're going to go and do some code refactoring so that our music manager actually will load the assets from Content Cloud Delivery. And then we're going to play the sound clips from there. And it was going to load them asynchronously in the background. So that's the next thing we're going to do. Most of the code changes we're going to be making are not actually going to be in the music manager. We're going to make some changes there. Most of the changes are going to be in our scriptable objects that we created for our music clip groups, our combat, and our peaceful. Actually, we really only need to make it in one class, and that's the music clip group scriptable object class. But before we make those changes, because we're going to be accessing the addressables and resource management namespaces, as you recall, we have a assembly definition. We're going to have to actually add references to that, to the addressables. Let's see, Unity addressables. And we're going to want to add one for Unity resource management, a resource manager. Okay, now that we've done that, if I go into my music clip groups, select combat, I'll save those changes. And let's just double click this to open this up in the Unity or in the Writer editor or Visual Studio Code, whatever editor you may happen to be using. Now you may remember that we had this list of audio clips for our music clips. And we are assigning them in the inspector as a serialized field. We're not going to do that anymore. This music clips is just going to become a plain old private variable. And instead, I'm going to have a single audio clip here, and I'm going to call this first music clip. All right. So what I'm going to do, and I'm actually going to have to go back and make a little minor change that I made in our addressables group. I'm going to remove one of the audio clips from both the combat and the peaceful groups, and I'm just going to assign them here. So each type of music, combat or peaceful, will have a single audio clip that will always be loaded immediately. This is so when the game first starts up, it can immediately start playing music for whatever type. And then in the background, we're going to load the rest of our music clips from cloud content delivery. That's easy for you to say. All right, so I want to add another serialized field here. And this is going to be a string, and I'm just going to, group name. Good old GitHub Copilot. It knows I've prototyped this before. So I want to add a bool here, and I'm going to call this loaded all clips. And we're going to use this when we call get next music clip. If we haven't loaded all clips, we're just going to return our first clip. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and do the normal shuffle thing. So we have this here called initialize track cues. I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to call initialize first track. So we want to make sure when this thing first starts up that we have a track that can play immediately when the game starts. And so I'm going to go ahead and create this function, Alt-Enter in Writer, and that created that. So what we're going to do in here is we're going to clear our audio clips list. So one thing we actually need to do is create a dictionary of audio clips. And this is going to allow us to go from the addressable clip name to the actual audio clip that we've loaded from Cloud Content Delivery. So we're going to cache these when we load these in the background, and then we're just going to look them up when we want to actually play them. But we need to clear that first before we start populating it. And I actually want to initialize this guy like so. And this probably isn't strictly necessary since it should only ever be called when this guy first gets initialized. But just in case initialize ever gets called again, I like to go ahead and call clear on these. It won't hurt if they're already empty. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and add our first clip's name and then our first clip. So this makes sure that our audio clips dictionary has at least one song in it. And then I also want to have an array of track addresses. Let me go ahead and add list string track addresses. And I'm going to go ahead and initialize that. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and initialize all of these. And if you're not familiar with this syntax, because I have the explicit type declared here, I can just do new and not specify like what it is I'm doing. It's smart enough to know that. And for our music clips, I actually don't need this music clips. And I'm going to make these all read-only, since the only time they should actually be instantiated is here. And let's see now, we got our audio clips. We want to clear our track addresses. And we want to also add the very first music clip name. So the way this is going to work is our track addresses is going to have our list of all of our tracks. And then when we build our queue, we're going to use the track addresses. And then we're always going to use the dictionary to get the actual audio clip that goes along with that. So after we have our initialize first track, I want to have a coroutine that will initialize our addressables. So I want an IEnumerator, and we're going to call this initialize addressables. And I just want to put a little debug log in here. I'll probably remove this later, but I want to say something like initializing addressables for whatever our group is. Remember, group name is a serialized field that we're going to assign in the inspector. So it's going to be combat or peaceful. We're going to get a group handle from our addressables. And so this is where we needed our addressables namespace, and this is why we had to add that to our assembly definition file. So with this handle, since this is an coroutine, we're just going to wait until this async operation is done, and in every frame when it's not done, we're just going to yield return back to null, so we're not freezing the game. And then we're going to get our track addresses from our group handle. So let me go ahead and create this function, and we'll go ahead and implement that function now. And this actually just needs to be, it doesn't need to be that explicit. It can just be an async operation handle. And I'm going to do another debug log in here. I'm going to say we're getting track addresses for group name. And we're going to clear our track addresses collection just like we did the other collections. And then we're going to check the result. We want to say if our group handle's result is not, and this is a interesting syntax here, if it's not an I enumerable, and we're going to use a variable called locations, then we're just going to return. Otherwise, we're going to do a for each var location in locations. And we're going to just add that track address, the string value of that track address, to our track addresses array or list. And we want to log this out and say found track address location. And it will automatically know to do a toString here. All right, so this will load our track addresses. All right, so after we did our get track addresses, we want to actually get our audio clips, as you can see that GitHub Copilot so kindly filled out for us. I'm going to move this down below the get track addresses. And so once again, I want to do a debug log, say we're loading our audio clips for group name. And then we're going to iterate through all of our track addresses. And then we're not going to do this. Hitting tab with GitHub Copilot will try to autocomplete. All right, so what I want to do is I want to get our addressables dot load asset async, a type audio clip for that track address. And then we're going to subscribe to the completed event. And we're going to save this off as operation. And we're going to do a lambda. And so basically we're just going to handle this event handler right in line here. So we're if the operation dot status is not equal to succeeded, then we just want to return out of here. All right. Otherwise, we want to get the clip, which is going to be operation.result. We want to add that to our audio clips array, dictionary, I'm sorry, with the track address and the clip. And then let's go ahead and do a debug log and say load it. And I want to start with the group name, so combat or peaceful, and then the clip name, and then for track address. So that'll give me a nice log message to say for whatever group I'm loading these for, I loaded this clip from this address. And then when we're done all of this, I just want to set loaded all clips equals true. And this needs to have a semicolon at the end here. Okay, so we got our track addresses. We initialized our audio clips. And since this is a coroutine, I can, while we're still loading clips, just yield return null out of here. It's probably not strictly necessary, but I'm just going to stay in this function until we've loaded all of our audio clips. All right, so that's all of the initialization stuff. I'm going to move that initialization stuff down below our public functions. All right. So what do we need to do next? So in our initialize method, our public initialize method up here, we want to call that coroutine. Now what's interesting is we're going to have to use our music manager to do that because we can't call a coroutine on a scriptable object. So we're going to say music manager dot start coroutine initialize addressables. So that will start our coroutine. All right. So going down to our first public function here, let me just delete all this. So this is where we're going to get our next audio clip. The first thing I want to do is, if we have not loaded all of our clips, then we just want to return our first music clip. So if this is the first time this is getting called and we're still in the process of running in the background, loading all our audio clips, we're just going to get that first music clip that we added here. Then we want to do our normal shuffle stuff. So if our track queue is empty, let's go ahead and shuffle the track queue. And then we're going to get the track address from our queue, because remember that is now, that's going to be a queue of strings. So let me look at that track queue. Yeah, this should be a queue of strings. So that's going to give us our track address. It's just going to be a local variable. And then we're going to return audio clips at that track address. And really, I probably, just to be safe, should probably check to see that there is an entry in the dictionary for that. And if I don't have one, then maybe just return the first music clip. But really, that dictionary should definitely contain any track address that we would get from this queue. So I'm not going to worry about that. Now we need to redo this shuffle track queue function. So this is correct. If we don't have anything in our queue, we just want to return. We want to clear our temporary list. But now instead of iterating through music clips, we're going to say var track address. If I can get on my right keys. In track addresses. And we're going to add that track address. So once again, our temp list also needs to be a list of strings. So really the only list of audio clips, only collection of audio clips we have is our dictionary now. So a little bit of refactoring going on there. This is all the same. We're going to, while we have something in this temp list, we're going to get a random one. We're going to add it to our track queue, and then we're going to remove it from the temp list. And that will build our random queue with all of those guys. We added it there, but I don't think we added it. Yeah, it's already in the track addresses. So yeah, that will work perfectly fine. So I don't think I need this function anymore. Do I have any compiler errors left in this file? It doesn't look like it. Why am I not using that? I must be missing something here. Oh, I see why. This was not supposed to be there at all. We already have this one, which is the one we need. So going back into Unity. All right, and now we look at this. You can see our scriptable object serialized fields are totally different now. So this is the combat one. So we're going to go ahead and call this one combat. And then for our first music clip, let's go into our music combat. This guy is no longer going to be an addressable. So he'll be removed from the music assets group. And what I will do is pick this guy, and then I'm going to drag him right into there. That will be our first combat clip. And then for our medieval theme one, which is going to be our first peaceful, He will no longer be an addressable, so he'll be removed from that group. If I pick this, I can now drag that into here, and we'll call this peaceful. Now, this is going to mean that I'm going to have to rebuild this to CCD. So I'm going to go ahead and say default build script and let that build. So we can push the updated music files up to our cloud content delivery. And that's done. Now it's just doing the post-build stuff. Why is it compiling shaders? Cyrenix editor. That's Odin. All right. So now let's take a look at our music manager. So the only thing I want to do in here is in here in play music, where we're doing this stop all coroutines. We don't want to stop all coroutines because you remember we have a coroutine running to load our clips in the background. And if we stop them, then that is going to break things. So what we're going to want to do is when we cue our next track right here, we're going to want to save off. I think I want to call that play track coroutine. And we'll go ahead and declare a variable for that. All right, so now we've got this play track coroutine that's going to get assigned whenever we start playing, whenever we go to queue up another track. And that's the coroutine we want to stop. So instead of doing that, what we're going to do, we're going to say if play track coroutine is not equal to null, then we're going to stop that coroutine. So that way, we'll stop the coroutine that we want to stop, but we won't risk stopping the one that is loading our clips in the background. And I think that may be all the changes we need in the music manager. So let me jump back out into Unity and make sure we don't have any build errors. Okay, I don't see any build errors. So now to test this out, I want to go into our UI. Let's look at our scene view here. And I want to turn on our pop-ups. Actually, let's look at it in the game view. That's a better view. And under pop-ups, I want to turn on our sound test menu. And in our settings dialog, expand all this out. This guy here, I want to set that check to be checked. So basically, this will let me just use these buttons to switch between peaceful and combat, just to make sure that all of that is working. So cross your fingers. I'm going to hit play and see what happens. We got peaceful music. So that works. There's some different peaceful music. Okay, so I think I know what's going on. If I'm already playing peaceful music, it's not letting me switch to different peaceful music, but it is letting me transition between peaceful and combat. And I think that's actually because I have code on the music manager, some logic. It's either in the music manager or it is actually in the, yeah, it's right here. It's saying that if the current music group is the same one that we're changing to, then just return. So we're passing in which group we want to switch to. And if it's the one we're already on, we're just returning. We're not going to play a different song. So that is all working great. So the next thing to do would be to build this out to a standalone build, compare the size of the audio that's being packed into the build with what we looked at before and see if it really did decrease, and also play the standalone build and make sure that it actually works. So I'll go up here to File, Build Settings, Build. Let that go. Yes, go ahead and save my scene. All right, so that build finished. It gave me this addressables report. And let's go ahead and take a look in our console at our editor log. And we're going to search. And I want to search down. That's why I was having trouble before. I'm going to say build report. All right. And look, our sounds went from 79 meg down to 28 meg. So you can see that it had a definite effect on the build size. And granted, this example, we're not using that many audio clips. They're not very big, so we're obviously not saving a whole bunch of space in this current project. But you can see if you have a lot of big sound files, lots of sound effects files, music files, if you have other assets that you want to use addressables for, like meshes or images or whatever, this would be a great way to reduce your build size. And also, what we're really going to see the benefit from is when we swap out these sound files, we'll be able to run the same standalone build that we've already built, and you'll be able to see the changes. So to test this out, we've got our standalone build here. I'm just going to go ahead and run this. And I have some huge nature manufacture assets and stuff in this, so this is why this is taking so long to load. Those are some good candidates for things that we could put into addressables and use cloud content delivery for. One of the things to think about with that too, you would probably want to have a title screen that would come up right away whilst loading all those things in the background. There it goes. It's working. We're able to transition between these clips just like before. Okay, so the next step is going to be to swap out these audio files with some different ones, push them up to Cloud Content Delivery, rerun the same build, and see that the sounds are different. With the exception of the very first one, which we basically dragged in as a serialized field in the build. So we can't change that one. But the ones that are being dynamically provided from Cloud Content Delivery, we can change out. So let's start with peaceful. I'm going to go ahead and delete all of these. And I'm going to drag this little clip over and this little clip over. I'm just dragging these from Eagle, and I haven't really even previewed these. Oh, that's basically the same thing. Alright, so I'll get rid of this one here. Alright, so I'm going to pick all of these. I'm going to make them addressables. And I'm going to add them to music assets. Alright, so I'll go into our music assets here. And let's pick all of these and make them peaceful. Alright, now let's go into combat and let's delete all these. And let's see, I got something here called Big Battle Loop. I'm going to drag that in. Yeah, like that. Okay, so let's pick all of these, make them addressable, add them to the music assets, select all of them, make them combat, and let's go ahead and do build to CCD. All right, let's bring up my Explorer window, and let's go ahead and play this. Wait for it to load up again. This has got to load all those nature manufacture assets. All right. All right, so as you can see, we were able to swap out audio files on Cloud Content Delivery without having to give the players a new build. So that, in my opinion, is the most valuable benefit of using Cloud Content Delivery. Yes, you can reduce your build size. Yes, you can speed up your load times. But for me, personally, the most value I see is being able to swap out assets, add more content or whatever, deliver it to your players without making them have to get a new build of your game. Well, hopefully if you found this tutorial useful, do me a favor and click the like and subscribe button. It really does help me to get this content in front of as many players as possible. It really does please the YouTube algorithm. And if you have any comments or questions about anything that you saw in this video, you can drop a comment below, or even better, go to my Discord server. I'll put a link in the description and you can ask questions there. And if you have trouble with code and you want some detailed help, you can post some screenshots or code snippets there. And me or somebody else that might be hanging out on the server could jump in and maybe help you answer your questions. And as always, I need to plug my Highland Panic game. It is a real-time cross-platform multiplayer card game available for the PC on Steam and for the iPhone on the Apple App Store and Android on Google Play. So I think that about wraps it up for this video. Thanks so much for watching and good luck on your game development journey.